philosophy of Buddhism specifically. Not to say that the religious aspect of Buddhism isn't important or valuable or, has teachable components to it, but mostly because I think, pragmatically speaking, Buddhism as the philosophy is just, it's more applicable to broader number of people. I mean, unless you're following the religion of Buddhism, which we'll get into, it's not really relevant to the discussion of the philosophy to understand the differences between the isms and religions of Buddhism. So to put that in more Western terms, or to whitewash it a bit to make it clear, it's sort of like talking about Catholicism and Apostolics and Protestants and Lutherans. Like, they're all Christians because they all follow Christ, and they all have their own scriptures and Bibles and teachings and rituals and things like that. And not to say that any one of them is better or worse than the other, or that they don't have things to teach, but the philosophy of Buddhism itself is separate from the religious practice of Buddhism. And I wanted to talk about the philosophy because that, to me, is what I follow, what I subscribe to. I don't subscribe to a religious aspect of Buddhism. I subscribe to the philosophy of Buddhism. So for lack of a better term, we'll call it ism, Buddhism, but it's the word of the Bodhisattva that we're really talking about, and the philosophy and teaching thereof.
How do you separate those two? Although, given that it's famously Taoism is separated into the philosophical Taoism, when you read and try and understand the Tao Te Ching, and then the religious Taoism, which involves ingesting poison and becoming immortal, which is easy to delineate because one is a great source of wisdom, the other is a great source of not being alive anymore. Whereas Buddhism, it's a little less cut and dry than
that. I think it's sort of akin to talking about the practice. So how you practice a philosophy is sort of the way we use the word religion, but religion is, generally speaking, requiring some aspect of faith to it. It has a belief system in it where you have to follow a teaching because you believe in it, not because you know it's true. But Buddhism as a philosophy is seeking truth no matter where you find it. So whether you find it in Islam or in Christianity, they both have Jesus in their scriptures, but there is a different focus and practice to it on both ends.
Right.
So to talk about Buddhism, like, I follow Taoist Buddhism, but I follow it, I consider myself like a principled fundamentalist of the Tao. I follow the Tao Te Ching as, it's a guide for if you don't know where to go, but the path of Buddhism is 360 degrees of freedom. You can reach enlightenment in any number of ways. Any way that you can act or behave can get you to enlightenment eventually. Whether it's all good or all evil that you do, you can still get there because everything is one, everything is circular. So there is no direct path. But what the teachings of the isms are intending to do is for people who say, okay, I want to achieve enlightenment, just as a really simplistic way of putting it, what do I do now? All the different isms are just different ways of getting you started to start looking so that you can find the philosophy. Mm-hmm. They're not the philosophy or the teaching in and of themselves. They are just the way. They are ways to the philosophy.